University, where we take adult shit and cut it into kid-sized pieces. My name is Miss A, and today in Humanomics, we'll be talking about opinions, judgments, how they affect our behavior, and how to be less judgmental. With that being said, let's get started, shall we? So this classroom discussion will be broken up into two parts. The first part is me sharing my thoughts on the matter, giving you some food for thought. And the second part will be me sharing some tips on how you can become less judgmental. Oh yes, and one more thing. Before I dive into my thoughts on the matter, please keep in mind that these are general observations of the topic at hand. So, please do not think that I'm advocating for the right to be disrespectful or harmful to another person, verbally or physically. Now, with all that said, let's jump into the matter. Opinions and judgments go hand in hand, and thus will always be a part of our world. Opinions help shape our perceptions, and thus leads us to judge how we're going to engage with the person or situation we find ourselves in. In other words, how we interact with the world. This happens on the daily. When you meet someone new, you decide, with or without facts, whether or not you like them and whether or not you're going to get along with them. It happens when we go for job interviews and when we're trying to figure out whether we're going to date or marry somebody. So basically, it's just built-in functionality of how our world works. Now, I'm sure we have all said, if not heard, the following saying, "Judge not, lest ye be judged." And as a Christian, I will say I totally believe in this, the essence of this, but of course, I'm human and I fall short from time to time, as do you and others. But hear me out on this. I think it's the most abused phrase out there or saying out there, because not only in church but outside of church, because the real context of what is being said is not being implemented or given its respect when one is saying this phrase. When the good Lord above came down and said these words, he knew what humanity was, the despair of humanity, and that he was going to have to save us. And when he came down, he dealt with us in love, even unto death. He said, judge them not for what they do. Now, I'm no pastor and I'm no preacher, but even though he knows that we're sinful, he chose to engage with us and still does on the daily for those who believe. So, when someone is saying, "Judge not, lest ye be judged," I believe most of the times people are throwing out this phrase as to shame somebody for the discernment that they have about a situation, as opposed to saying that one should not behave negatively off of their discernment. I'll give you an example. If one is doing drugs and I discern that drugs are bad, now what I do how I interact with them will show if I'm judging them or if my discernment is just telling me this is bad, but I can still engage with this person in a respectful, civil manner. So, what I'm trying to say is that I believe that people, when they throw out this phrase, they're usually not. I mean, usually it's because someone is behaving negatively towards somebody, but also sometimes you're just discrediting the discernment, and that is just the acknowledgement between what's right and what's wrong of that person. So let me say that when you are using this phrase, understand that the discernment of understanding if something is good or bad is the person's total right. What they don't have the right to do is belittle, berate, make someone feel less than by discriminating towards them or being disrespectful to them based off of what they discern is not correct. So, I'd like for you to keep that in mind. That if you're going to use that phrase, understand that the good Lord above knew our condition and still embraced us, that we are to embrace one another with compassion and grace, or kindness, I should say, because we're all sinners. We all fall short of His standards, or of His holiness, I should say. It never said that we weren't to discern whether things are right or wrong. Another thing I notice about judging is that when we don't like the judgment of other people, we tend to think of ourselves better than that person. Better than that person because we don't say those things. We don't behave that way. We know how to this or that. You know, we get egotistical about and high and mighty about who we are. But in that too, we can sometimes become haters per se. We hate that this person doesn't, fall in line with how we believe or what we perceive, and so we judge them. And in judging them, we become spiteful or hateful towards that person. But think about it this way: magnets of the same energy repel one another, but magnets of different energy attract one another. So if you're going to look down on someone because they're not as good as you, they say disrespectful things, they just don't exemplify all that you're about, then you have to be willing to do better by showing an example how to be more compassionate, more understanding, more kind. That's the only way you're going to lift yourself up and lift them up, hopefully, by inspiring them to rethink their behavior, their bad opinions, etc. And here's my final thought, is that we all need to remember that in this life, no one knows what tomorrow's going to bring. And this world is built for us to be interdependent on one another. So that person you don't like, you don't speak to, they might be your saving grace tomorrow. Or vice versa. We have to remember that we're all in this together. Judging should not cripple us, our humanity, in other words. The golden rule is love thy neighbor. Love your neighbors. Love the person, love the situation, or what have you. But you have to treat them with respect, with kindness, with civility, with compassion. Do this, and you will lead by example, and you will find it'll put you in a different state of mind and be less judgmental. Okay, so those are my thoughts on the matter. Take it or leave it. I just thought I'd share some things. Now I'm going to give you some tips that I looked up in this article that I'll leave the link down below. And I'm just going to run through some ways that can help you be less judgmental. Number 1, pause when you have a judgmental thought. Number 2, challenge your judgmental thinking. Number 3, try and be understanding. Number 4, identify other people's strengths. Number 5, forget about the things you've done for someone else. And number 6, clarify your goals. Well, that's it for today. Just a few thoughts on opinions and judgments, as well as some tips on how to be less judgmental or critical of others. Thank you for attending class. Go ahead and do your homework by subscribing to this channel and a thumbs up in this video. My name is Miss A, and until next time, remember, you must be this tall to pay bills.